This is If My People Bible reading 160, I think it's 168, the book of Nehemiah, the last book of the of the Old Covenant, appropriately given at the time that it was written. And so several key facts before we go into the New Covenant that are just openly given to Nehemiah. This is a long, prayerful book. And basically, it has to do with two things. It has to do with the rebuilding of the walls, the temple, Nehemiah's prayer for the remnant of Jerusalem that returned from Babylon, and Nehemiah's request of the king, the return to Jerusalem, review of the ruins, Nehemiah's encouragement to rebuild the walls, and the rebuilding of the walls and gates, and Nehemiah's responses to opposition. Now, this has to do with Jerusalem proper and the walls that protected them when they came back, and then the temple, which for futurists like us that we live in the future, it has to do with our protection for ourselves. The protection is Yahweh, and the temple is us. So it's this physical thing that's going on, but you got to relate it when you read the book of Nehemiah to us. And it's also part two is the revival and reform that's going to take place. It is the key theme as it ends, starting in chapter 8 to 13. It gets into very great detail that represents almost the future to come, and this is what's going to happen. It didn't happen as completely as it should have. The people, of course, fell apart there, and then you have other books that are written that are not in the Bible. They're more historical facts with no prophetic statements. But so we have the great Bible reading led by Ezra. Ezra was good at documentation. And then the revival and the result, chapters 9 and 10. And then the Reformation, another result of all this in chapters 11 to 13. What comes out? What comes out in this is that, start with chapter 8. It lists the what happens on the month and what happens on the seventh, the first day of the seventh month, the day of trumpets. It's not the head of the new year, as many of the churches teach, both Orthodox Judaism, Christianity. That's not true. The head of the new year is the equinox in the spring in March. Okay, that is not the fall head of the new year. There are not two head of the new years. Now, this government of the United States is still founded on the understanding of the head of the new year being in the fall. Why? Because that's why the federal government begins the head of the new year in the fall and starts it on November 1 with the new budgets and finances and everything else. But the United States has simply got it totally, unbelievably wrong. And who were they told by? Errant rabbis who like to make things up because there's certain reasons that they do that. You should not be paying attention on a daily, weekly basis to a rabbi who hates Jesus Christ, who hates. And if they don't say they hate, they just don't say anything at all, which means they hate him. They do not recognize him, but they will. They're going to become jealous one day, and the ones who pick it, there will be most who do not. Well, we're not to worry about them. You're always going to take care of them. And then all the people that are sealed, just like we're going to be sealed. All the people who did and given certain positions to live, we're going to be getting certain positions to live. But the details in Nehemiah, the book, bring out something I want to show you in graphic. And we'll start with this one. It talks about the Watergate. Pay attention to what it says in the book of Nehemiah. And that would be the location of Solomon's temple. Now, this is what I'm showing you now. Pay attention to it. The water to take care of the temple came down through this way and underground, so forth, so they can get to the spring of Gihon to take care of the worship and the sacrifices in the temple. So it makes perfect sense that David, Solomon's temple, and Nehemiah, the second one built, and then later on would be King Herod's temple is here. Now up in here, way up in here, is where the world says, including most of the Jews today, the world says, and most of the Christians today, because they just follow whatever the rabbis say, they say it's up here. And as I'll show you in a couple of more drawings, we'll go back to it again. We'll start here. So this would be the city of David. This is the old Pharaoh area, and this upper part here is here. But that's not where the temple was. Look here. Read the book of Nehemiah. It doesn't come close. You have no water up here. If you slaughter 10,000 lambs and goats and bulls, where do you wash them? Where do you get the water? Where do you get the monumental amount of cleansing for the priest on a daily basis, every day doing this? Where does it come from? Well, it's because it was never there. So what is here today? What is here? What is here? What is there? Well, let's take a look. Modern day, pretty well modern day of Jerusalem. Here is the dome where the great majority of Christians and Orthodox Judaism say that this is where their temple site was, right by the Dome of the Rock. The Wailing Wall, it's way over here, folks, way over here. Was all this torn down when the Romans left? Because this is where the Romans bivouacked 10 to 20 to 30,000 Roman troops to keep an eye not on just Jerusalem, but the whole area of Palestine. For goodness sakes, the Tower of Antonia, which everyone says is way up in here, it was probably somewhere here. There was a wall. This would be the northern wall, not the southern wall. This is southern wall here. This is wrong. Here's a highway that goes around, and the promise and the prophecy that this area would be plowed under. Nothing has been plowed under anywhere, folks. Nowhere except here. Even here was never plowed under. This area was plowed under, and this was rebuilt later on. And then the highway. Then there was a wall going around here. So where was the temple site of Yeshua? And the gate he went out of, the east gate, the water gate? Here. It's here. So there is no argument in the world today about this millennial temple being built and the Antichrist coming up here. So if the Antichrist does come, which he will, and he will make the sacrifice representing himself, and the world will take him as the Messiah, it's going to be up in here. And is there going to be a blood sacrifice? Yes, there is. And is he going to stop it? Yes, he is. He's going to shut all this down. Yes, he is. He's been lying for years, and he finally identifies who he is, and he's doing it on this ground here, which is not sacred at all. That is an abomination of desolation. That is your abomination right there. When in fact, God, Yahweh, is smarter than we are, and so here it was. And will this temple be rebuilt according to the drawings of and the prophecy from Yahweh to Ezekiel? No, it doesn't fit. It would take up this entire area times 20 times bigger than everything you see. Could not possibly fit here in the future. Again, there's your drawing. There are thousands of drawings, and very few are like this. Somebody down here knew what they were talking about. Someone here didn't know, and the other thousands that look just like this. It's not even worth commenting about. Not at all. So Malachi, a very short book, to the point, and it's the last book in the Old Testament. And where is it showing you? Where is it showing you? After all we've read, and now we're getting into the new covenant, most churches will not accept anything I say, especially the rabbis from Orthodox Judaism. No way. It goes against almost everything they tell you, everything they've written. It goes against their Kabbalah. It goes against their mysticism. It goes against their Talmud and their sages and all these mystics who always have to come up with something new so that they can be the rabbi of choice, the famous rabbis. And one of their famous rabbis died about 5 or 6 years ago, and he wrote on his deathbed the name of Yeshua HaMashiach. And it came out, but the world didn't pay much attention to it. Satan was busy doing other things and keeping the press as usual in all kinds of lies and deceit, which is what they're famous for. They always get you to, the press does this. Here's what the press's job is. Look somewhere else. Don't look at this, folks. Pay attention to that. And if something comes of importance, we'll come up with something more important, some big, fantastic bullcrap lie to tell you. And the public at large and many of the sheep in the churches will fall for it every time. And they'll go to their pastor, who hasn't got a lick sense or understanding. He just runs the business of church. Won't have an idea of how to tell you the truth. And he couldn't find it if he had to, because they don't teach that in theological institutes. They don't teach it. And these friends of mine who are still in the pastoring business, no matter what you tell them, here's what they say. Just like the Christians who are sheep say, who live on the milk and never get on the meat. Here's what they say, the last thing to you. Well, all I know, Bruce, is I love Jesus and Jesus loves me. And I've got the helmet of salvation on. I said, well, is that all God tells you have to have is the helmet of salvation? That is right. That's all I have to have is the helmet of salvation. That's all I have. I said, well, didn't Paul tell you to put on the full armor of Yahweh? Do you go into the war totally naked, wearing a helmet? You don't have the sword of truth in your hand? You don't have anything girded about you to protect your nakedness? You just have the helmet of salvation? Your feet aren't even shod with good shoes? And they usually go dead silent. And I've checked on this, and the people that I've given to, about 80 to 90 people have access to this. And it says on YouTube, everything I do is absolutely free. I will give away anything that I can possibly afford to others. I don't even ask. And yet I will guarantee you, because the word says that a remnant will be going to heaven. A remnant will be going into Jerusalem to claim it. Just as it's written here in the book of Nehemiah. A remnant. And the great majority of the world will ignore everything that people like me have said, what I have said, what you have said, and anyone who's paid attention to what I'm doing. Where we're at 168, 99.9% of the people have given up. They go on to their cartoons and entertainment, Facebook, and all the other nonsense. It's all about them. Facebook, ooh, and all these things. It's all about me. That's what they're doing. And there's only so much you can do for them. You pray for them, and you pray for them until Yeshua comes. And he'll just say, well done, my good and faithful servant. That's what he'll say. And he'll say it to you. All right. Next time we meet again, we're going to be in the new covenant. Hallelujah. Here come the 1,050 Torah commands. It's going to blow the doors off of every Orthodox rabbi and the majority of the Christian churches who do not believe in Torah instruction in the new covenant. But I'm going to give it to you so you can read it point blank. See you then.